We left our campsite in Champagnac-la-Rivière at about 6 a.m, taking care not to disturb the other guests, and drove for about 14 hours across France and Italy, taking in some of the most spectacular scenery. Churches, castles, mountains, and of course the Alps, before passing through the Frejus road tunnel into Italy. We stopped for fuel, which was a strange experience, and continued on our way, past Bologna and Parma. The last few miles were on winding roads through Italian villages, and we eventually reached our campsite, Rio Verde, a 21-kilometre drive north of Gubbio, at about 8 or 9 p.m. The weather had not been kind. Central Italy was experiencing their wettest spring for many years, and the campsite not only was a bit damp, but was quiet. Facilities were basic. They've been renovated since, I understand, and the pool was not yet open for the summer season. The next morning we decided to take a visit to Fano on the coast, which turned out to be a brilliant idea as well as a mistake, as it was the best day weather-wise and would perhaps have been better off spent in Gubbio. Fano itself was a complete surprise. Our main reason for visiting was to go to a large supermarket. Why we didn't look for one in Gubbio, I don't know. However, we chose to drive to the beach and were completely taken aback when we realised that Fano had the most amazing Roman architecture and remains, and warranted a longer visit than just the fleeting shopping trip. It's about now that the holiday started to turn into what we laughingly called the Knobs and Knockers Tour. Having returned to our campsite, we rustled up a quick meal and then drove into Gubbio to meet up with our friends who had also driven across from the UK for the weekend. Gubbio itself is a quaint medieval town built on the side of a large hill, at the top of which is the Basilica di Santo Baldo. The town was decked out ready for the Palio della Balestra, due to take place on the last Sunday of May, and this was the reason we were visiting. The streets were narrow, cobbled and winding, with barely enough room for cars, and most houses had their original doors and, you've guessed it, doorknobs, knockers and latches. We found Via Gabrielli and the Palazzo di Gabrielli, which was the home of the family our medieval reenactment society, Domus Lunaris, portray in the UK events. For us, this trip was a sort of pilgrimage. Our explorations brought us to the Palazzo Del Bagelo, on the corner of Via dei Consoli and Via San Giuliano. The plaque is about the palace and reads, "An elegant noble residence traditionally believed to have been occupied by the Bargello or Chief of Police. It is now the headquarters of the ancient society of crossbowmen who have set up a small museum inside. It faces onto the 16th century fountain known as the Madman's Fountain, from whose water one can acquire a healthy dose of Gubbio's particular brand of folly." More on that later. We caught up with our friends who took us to a shop where some of the crossbows due to be used in the next day's competition were being kept. They were stunning. The amount of work that had gone into them. You could also buy miniature replicas as souvenirs, and David ended up with a 2/3 sized one, which we smuggled home. We wandered round the town some more, and Sam and Grant took us to the Society's practice ground. They also showed us the funivia, the cable car, well, more like cable cage, that takes people up and down the hill to and from the Basilica. It was about 8 o'clock at night by this point, and starting to get dark. I wish I could say that the next day dawned bright and clear, but it didn't. It was wet and, to be honest, a bit miserable. The schedule for the Palio that day had changed a bit. The procession had been cancelled, and we were told that the away team, San Sepolcro, had even decided that they would not be wearing their costumes that day. We elected to make the most of the day, such as we could, and did the grand tour of Gubbio. We started at the Piazza Grande, where the Palio was being set up. You can see us looking at old pavasses here, or shields for crossbowmen. And then we took the land train with the audio tour. When we got back, a quick visit to the 16th century Bargello, or Madman's Fountain, was in order. Traditionally, to receive a madman's licence, you have to complete 3 laps of the fountain and be baptised with the water flowing from it by a local. This same water once contained high levels of the toxic chemical iridium, which was thought to cause, you've guessed it, madness. Unsurprisingly and enterprisingly, you can purchase a certificate or licence from one of the nearby souvenir shops to prove you are a confirmed madman once you get home. Baptised by the water. Next up, lunch. Gubbio is known for truffles and crescia, a type of flatbread. Sandwiches here are usually made from this bread, and may even have truffle in as well. I can confirm that the spinach and bacon one was delicious. Afterwards, we continued our explorations through town. Gubbio has a long and rich history. It was settled by the Romans, and although it doesn't look like it from the photos, has the second largest surviving Roman amphitheatre in the world, the largest of course being the one in Rome. It's also well known as the place where St. Francis of Assisi encountered the wolf and saved Gubbio from its attacks. There is a statue to St. Francis on the edge of the old town, and the wolf is the town's emblem. This is just a very light touch on the town's history. We'll save the rest for another time and leave you with a montage of photos for now. No trip to Gubbio is complete without a visit up to the Basilica di Santo Baldo on that sketchy-looking funivia up Mountain Gino. And a break in the weather afforded us the opportunity. The ride was surprisingly smooth, having been built in 1960 to make it easier for the citizens of Gubbio, the Ugubinians, to visit the sanctuary of their patron saint. However, getting out of the cage was a bit of a hairy experience. The Basilica is a Roman Catholic church with an adjacent convent and was built in the early 1500s. They were badly damaged during the Second World War bombing of Italy, and the interior was reconstructed. The church houses the mummified remains of the patron saint of Gubbio, Saint Ubaldo, who was a bishop here in the 12th century. Also on display are the candles or ceri, which are used in the Saint Ubaldo Day procession and race, La Corsa di Ceri, which is held in May each year. Time to head back down the mountain to the Palio.
I wonder if children are allowed to ride.
Yeah, I expect so. I don't care about health and safety here.
Wave for the camera. Sheltered here.
It's the fact that we're in a basket gets me.
Another town.
It's another town.
The town that they battle against today.
I don't know. I think so. But I'm not saying what that big building is up there.
A big church.
Yeah. Nobody in the square yet.
Can you actually see the square?
Yeah, it's
oh yeah, just down there.
kind of just
yeah.
It's just there.
Yeah. All the trees have just grown too tall for it. Can't quite see.
Too many trees.
Yeah. Through there?
Through there.
That gap.
Right,
the best
so
gap.
it's just there. So quiet up here.
It's beautiful, isn't it?
We made our way back to the Piazza Grande for the Palio, the start time of which had been put back considerably, and this caused us a few problems later. But for now, let the competition begin.
Eccellentissimi cavalieri della terra della vetusta del Baldo Baldassini, dell'Epi Lauderisi e del Bosone, giunga a voi lo saluto nostro. Giunga a voi lo saluto della terra del nostro Giorgio Andreoni, De Cantapone e De Cante di Gabriele. Giunga infine lo saluto della seconda patria dello frate Francesco che della nostra terra ebbe in dono il primo saggio dal suo amico Spadafora. Madonna Messere, e popolo tutto qui convenuto, a voi il nostro saluto e
very quiet. But here we are in Gubbio. This is the whole reason for the trip, is to come here and see the Palio, which is the Balestra competition, which is actually going on behind me, and I should add in some extra pictures at some point. It's absolute chaos. But it's been amazing to watch. You can see it from here. These guys are just actually see them from here. They're all sat just there. Shooting at the target, which is over here. You can see that red square with the white dot. Target. It's been a great trip, absolutely brilliant. And that was that. We left Gubbio in a hurry at about 5 p.m, and it was then a race to make a 3 p.m. ferry in Roscoff, Brittany the next day. An 18-hour drive minimum, and we needed to sleep on the way as well. Needless to say, we got speeding tickets, 3 in fact, 2 of which were in the Mont Blanc tunnel. And we were so tired, and it was dark, so you have no footage of our journey other than a photo of Chef Express, one of the service stations, all lit up. I think this was as we crossed into France. We made the ferry by the skin of our teeth, arriving late and getting stopped by the gendarmes as the entirety of the passengers on board watched. Once on board, we crashed and slept for most of the journey before disembarking at Plymouth and crossing the Tamar Bridge back into Cornwall. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe. Leave us a comment and we look forward to the next trip. Why don't you join us for the journey? See you soon.